Hey, hello everyone. My name is Dinesh Krishna. I'm going to show you how to create a simple Hello World program by using Apache Camel framework. I have my Eclipse with me. You can see it in my screen. So I'm going to create the new Maven project. So then I'll teach you how to create a simple Hello World program by using Apache Camel framework. So go to the file menu, go to the new. So you can create a new Maven project. Click on it. So you will find an option called, create a simple project, skip archetype selection. So I'm going to select it and give a next. So you can actually name your group ID and artifact ID. I'm going to name my group ID as Dinesh Krish. So my artifact ID is camel application. Okay. So you can, if you want to change a version, you can change it. I'm going to leave it as it is. So give finish. Now you can see that the new Maven project is created called Camel application. So you can see the POM file. So the POM file, we have to add a Camel dependency for this project. So let's go to the Maven repository in the browser. This is the URL, Maven repository. You can go inside. Then you can simply find Camel code. So just search. You'll find an option, you'll find the links here for Camel core. So just click on it. You can see there are a lot of releases actually happened so far. As of now, the current latest version says 2.22.0. So click the current one. So you can see what the Maven dependency here. Just copy this. So go to your Eclipse, then add the dependency to your Maven project. So dependencies, I'll say here. So you can see that in a Maven project, I added the Camel core, all the dependency downloaded from the repository and added into what my Camel application, my Maven project. I'm sorry, my Maven project. Yeah. So now, let's write a program. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a class called Hello World. I'm putting this class into the package called com.dineshkrish.example1. Yeah, let me give a finish. So you can see that the new class is created under this package. So obviously it's going to have a main method. So that's an entry point of the application. So now, whenever you want to do anything with a camel, so first of all, we have to make sure that we are creating the camel context object. So how to do that? First step is create the camel context instance. Context equal to new default camel context. So let me fix all the import issue. So I'm going to import the camel context class from org.apache.camel. Import that, as well as import the default camel context. Yeah. So now, you have to add a routes to this context. So context dot add routes. Now you can see that this context add routes method takes a route builder as an argument. So what we have to do, we have to create a route builder instance, and we have to inject that instance to what this particular method. So let's create one more class. So that's called Hello World Route. Okay. So this class has to extend the route builder class. So guys, you can see that the route builder class is an abstract class. So it has one abstract method. So we have to override that abstract method. So the abstract method is configured. So here the place you can say what your route has to do. Since it's a Hello World program, I'm simply doing what? Hello World in Camel. So let me create an instance for this route and pass it to what our add routes method. It's a new Hello World route. So now this method actually want me to handle the exception. So you can handle them or else you can throw them. Let me throw it as of now. So what is the first step? We created the context, we added the router. Now we have to start the context. So start the context. So let me run this application. Let's see what's going to happen. Next, here we go. You can see hello world in Camel. It's just got printed. So this is how so let me summarize. So we just created the Maven project. We added the Camel core dependency. We created the Camel context instance. We added the router. Then we start the context itself. Then we got the expected output. I'm going to show you how to do the file copy from one folder to another folder by using the Camel framework. So we already created the Maven project. That has all the Camel dependency, the Camel core dependency. So I'm going to make use of the same project. So for this example as well. So let me create new class. The class name is file copy. So I'm going to put this class into the package called com.example2. So give a finish. You can see the new class is created. So let's have a main method in it. So we all know that the first step is creating the Camel context object. So let's create a Camel context instance. Context equal to new default Camel context. Why? So do all the imports. I imported all the necessary classes. So what we have to do now, we have to add the routes to the context. So dot add routes. So in this time, I'm going to pass the route builder as the anonymous. So now new route builder. Hey guys, you can see it here. So you can find the route builder as an interface and route builder as a class. So make sure that you are passing route builder as a class, okay, not an interface. So you can see that there is one abstract method is available called the public void configure. So we have to handle we have to override this method. So let me throw the exception. So what I have to do here, so I have one folder. I want to copy the files from one folder to another folder. So to do that, from dot to. So this is my from endpoint. This is my to endpoint. So what I want to do it in my from. The from. So you in a Camel, you have the inbuilt component called file. So that will actually take care of all the file operation. So what is our requirement? We have one folder. So I'm mentioning the folder name as input box. Okay. Then I have another folder component : that folder name is output box. So whatever available in this folder or any file actually dropped to this folder, as soon as that file gets copied to the output folder. So that's our intention. So how to do that? So you have to add one more argument. That's nothing but option in Camel. So it's a nope equal to true. Why? So this is the component, this is the endpoint. So in this case, it's a folder name. So this is the option in the Camel routes. So what I want, like as soon as any file is dropped in to this folder, so that automatically that files will be moved toward the destination folder that we have. So okay, so we created the context, we added the router, we defined what the router has to do. Now let's start the context. So in this case, I want this process to be continuous. So I'm starting this context in the infinite loop. So context dot start. Let me save and run this program. Run. So you can see that our Camel context is started. So now, where is this input box folder is available, right? So since we created here, let me refresh this project. You can see there is a folder is created called input underscore box. As soon as you create any file inside that, let me create one file. The file is empty file. Finish. You can see that one empty file is created. Now simply refresh the application. You can see one more folder is created called output box. Okay, you can see whatever file we added into the input box, that is actually moved toward the outbox folder as well. Okay, let me create a new file again. So I'm creating a new file. So the file is empty2. Finish. So you can say that, let me refresh this. You can see that it's automatically moved to from input box to output box. I'm going to show you how to use the producer and consumer template in Apache Camel framework. Let's start an example. Yeah. So we already have an application for Camel. We already have a payment project that has the Camel dependency. Let me create a new class. So new class. So that's class. I'm going to name it as producer and consumer example. I'm going to put them into the com.dineshkrish.example free package. Give a finish. So you can see the new class is created here. So let me add a main method here. So generally the name itself actually producer and consumer template. So what is a producer and consumer in the sense, like a producer is going to produce something. So that means typically that's going to send something to the endpoint, and consumer is going to receive something, whatever sent by the producer. So that is the very simple idea behind it. Okay, let's achieve with the program. Yeah. So first of all, we all know that we have to put a camel context equal to new default camel context. Right. So now let's add a route. Camel context dot add route equal to new route buffer. So let's take the class. Okay, we have to override the configure method. So that actually want us to throw or handle the exception. Let me throw the exception as of now. So what I want to do here, I just simply want to send one message to the endpoint. So the same message will be sent to another endpoint. So whatever message is sent to another endpoint, from that endpoint I want to receive the message. Okay, so that's an idea. So let's create a different endpoint. One is for from endpoint, another one is a to endpoint. The first endpoint is direct dot start. That's my endpoint. The second endpoint is cedar.end. So if you look at it, I'm using two components. One is sorry, it should not come in here. No semicolon. Yeah. The first endpoint, it's about direct component and then start. The second endpoint, it's about cedar component and end. So both are actually inbuilt component in the Camel. So we can actually make use of as part of our producer and consumer example. Let's create the producer template first. Producer template producer template equal to context dot create producer template. So that will give you the producer template instance. So producer template dot. So what do you want to do? I want to send some message to this endpoint. So what is the message? So you can send it by using send body message. You can see there is one more method is available. So which takes endpoint as an argument and the object that you want to send. Okay. So what is my endpoint? My endpoint is direct dot start. So what is the message I would like to pass so that you can send it? I would like to send the message. It's something, hello everyone. So what we are doing it now. So we just created the producer template trying to send the message to this endpoint. Okay. So once our message reaches this endpoint, this endpoint will send the message to this endpoint. So this endpoint is going to receive the message. From this endpoint, I would like to receive the message by using the Camel producer. By using the Camel consumer template. So let's create a consumer template, consumer template equal to context dot, create consumer template. Now I would like to receive the message. Obviously the message is consumer template dot, we have a method called receive body. So here we can give the endpoint URL and what kind of object that you're going to receive, right? The class type itself. So what is the endpoint here? So we are sending the message to this endpoint actually sending the message to this endpoint. So ideally this endpoint will have the message. We would like to consume the message from this endpoint. So you have to mention ceda.ceda:end. So what type of message? Since it's an object, but we are passing what string as an argument, so string type. So you have to specify what type of object that you are expecting, string class type. So that will give you the string object, object. So you can put it, you can store it in a variable, or you can simply print that. You can do it. So what we done, we created the Camel context, we added the router, we defined the router, what the router has to do, direct and end. So we created the producer template, we sending the message to this endpoint. So that is actually sending the message to this endpoint, ceda:end. So we are consuming the message from this endpoint. So that is what this producer and then consumer template actually does. So obviously, I forgot to do one more step. We have to start the Camel context. So to do that, start Camel context. So let me run this example. We'll see what is going to happen. You can see that the producer template sends the message to the direct.dir::start endpoint, and consumer template actually consume the message from the ceda::end endpoint. We had a simple example for producer and consumer template. So we created the producer template and consumer template that sends the message and receives the message. I'm going to show you how to create a processor in Apache Camel framework. So now, in our previous example, we actually sending the message and receiving the message. So in the same example, so in between the from and to endpoint, I would like to add one more method that's for processor. You can see there is a method called processor which takes processor as an argument. So just click on it. You can do new processor, right? So this is the method. So here the place you can do whatever you want. So let me simply print the message to check the processor is running as of now. I am the processor. Simply run this example. Here we go. So in between the from and to endpoint, so we were able to run the processor. So far, we just added the processor in between our two endpoint. So now, what this example exactly doing it? So in the producer template, we are sending this message. In the consumer template, we are receiving the same message from this endpoint. But I added the processor in between. I would like to do some customization before my consumer going to receive the message. Okay, so I have to do that. So if you look at it, let me remove this line. If you look at it, in our processor, so there is a method called process method which has exchange object. So from the exchange object, we can able to receive the whatever message sent to this endpoint. For how to do that? Exchange dot get in. So get input dot get body. So you can see that the body type, right? So what type of message that we are passing? If this is the string object, right? Please specify the string dot class so that I can able to get the same type of message. So now I received the message. Now let me do the customization. So I simply want to add one string that says finish question. So before my consumer going to receive the message, I want to append something on top of the same message. So that message, my consumer should receive. Okay. So now we got the input, we done the customization. Now we have to set the object back to the exchange object. So how to do that? Exchange dot get out set body. Now my message object, right? Let me print. Let me run this example and then see what is going to happen. There we go. You can see this is the actual message we sent, but our processor done some customization on top of the message before the consumer going to receive the same message. So to the browser and go to this URL. So activemq.apache.org. So here in the landing page, you can see the download link, or else you can find download the ActiveMQ. So this is the latest version for today. So 5.15.4. So if you don't find this, go to the download link. So you can find the latest release. Go to the latest release. Then you can find the getting the binary distribution. So here you can find there is a two distribution. One is a Windows distribution, another one is the Linux and Unix distribution. So my environment is Windows, so that's what I'm downloading this distribution. So you can, if you are using Linux and Unix, you can download it accordingly. So let's click on this. We just downloaded Apache ActiveMQ distribution. Just go to the download part. So you can find the distribution is downloaded here. So just unzip it, extract ActiveMQ. Cool, that is extracted. So go inside the folder, go inside the Apache ActiveMQ folder. You can find there is a folder called bin. So head over to the bin folder. Now just open the command prompt by pointing this location. So now we can see that I'm pointing downloads my ActiveMQ folder. Inside the ActiveMQ folder, there is a bin folder. So make sure that you are pointing to the bin folder. Okay. So now you have to type a command ActiveMQ space start. So this is the command to start the ActiveMQ server in Windows. Just run it. So you can see that the ActiveMQ server is started. That is actually starting listening in the 8161 port. So just go to the browser, open the new tab. You can just type localhost 8161. Just enter. You can see the ActiveMQ application is up and running in our local machine. So if you want to access the admin portal, just click the manage ActiveMQ broker. Click on it. So here you have to provide the username and password. So by default, the username and then password is admin. Just sign in. You can see the ActiveMQ, the management portal. So now let's create the queue in the ActiveMQ server. So how to do that? So go to the queues menu. Here you can actually find the option to provide the name of the queue that you're going to create. So I'm going to give the queue name as my queue. So just hit the create button. You can see the queue is created. If you want to rename it, if you want to delete it, as of course there is an option. You can delete and recreate as you want. So as of now, I'm going to use this queue as part of my Camel application. I'm going to show you how to send the file to ActiveMQ server. In the previous video, I actually shown you how to download the ActiveMQ and start the same in the Windows environment. We just started the ActiveMQ and even we created one queue in the ActiveMQ server. So that is my underscore queue. I'm going to use the same as part of this example. So go to the Maven project. So before we're going to proceed with anything, we have to add few dependency to our Maven project. So how to do that? Go to the browser, go to the Maven repository website. You can find Camel ActiveMQ. Search for it. So then you can go for the first link, that is actually ActiveMQ:Camel. So as per this video, the latest version is 5.15.4. Click on it. Then you can copy the dependency. You can add same to our existing Maven project POM. So go to the POM. So add it here. So as soon as that is added, you can see all the dependency, whatever is necessary, everything is added to what our existing Maven project. Now which we are all good. Let's start the program. Go to the new, just create a class. I'm going to create a class called file2 ActiveMQ. Right? I'm putting the same class into the different package called combat-crush example 4. Just give a finish. The new class is created. Let's have a main method in it. We all know the first step is actually creating the camel context for this example. Camel context equal to new default camel context, right? So once that is done, we have to add context.route. Routes new route builder new, not the interface, I'm sorry, new routes builder, right? So here, let me throw the exception for why. So inside we have to send the file to what? ActiveMQ server. So before we're going to do that, we need to get connection for ActiveMQ server. So how to do that? So connection factory equal to new ActiveMQ connection factory. So now we have to add JMS component to the camel context. Context.add component. So what is our component name? My component name is JMS component. JMS component. JMS component dot JMS component auto acknowledge. So you have to pass whatever the connection factor that we have. Now we created the context, we got the connection for ActiveMQ, we created the route. Now we have to define the endpoint. So the from endpoint, so since we want to send the file to the ActiveMQ server, so the from endpoint is what the file directory itself. File input underscore box. Our option is MOP equal to true. The true endpoint is ActiveMQ :Q our queue name. So what is our queue name? So our queue name is my underscore queue. So please mention the same, my underscore queue. You can see that from endpoint and to endpoint is created. Now let me start with the context. How to do that? Context.start. I want this context to be infinite. So that's what I'm putting in the word that means I don't want this context to end at all. So it's always started. So it will be running all this. So now you can see that we have already a folder called input underscore box. So as soon as we add any file to this folder, so that file would be sent to what? Our ActiveMQ queue. Okay, so let me start this application. We'll see what we're gonna get. Okay, the application is started. That means our camel context actually running. So now we have this directory. Let me add any file to this directory. So now you can go and verify. So as of now, the queue is what is empty, right? So let me add some file to this existing folder that we have. I'm saying it's an empty file. Let's do a finish. So as soon as that is done, you can see the folder actually received one file called empty. Now go to your ActiveMQ, just refresh your queue. Now you can see that your queue received one message. That's nothing but in the file that we sent. You can see what So this is the parent, but that's nothing but in a folder. So this is the file exactly we got. That's a file name is consumed. So since we don't have any content in the file, that's what it seems to be empty, right? So you can actually put the content and then you can drop the same file to the folder. So that will be sent to what? The ActiveMQ server. I'm going to show you how to send object to the ActiveMQ by using what in a Camel framework. In our previous tutorial, yes, of course, we sent for a file to the ActiveMQ. But this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to send object as well to the ActiveMQ server. Let's do that. I'm going to create a new class in the same package called object to ActiveMQ. So now let me actually take some piece of code from here. We'll reuse the same code. Let me create the main method. Let's copy paste the code. Let's do the declaration. What we're doing it here, we created a camel context, we got the connection factory. Now we added the router, so we have to do slight modification in the router. Okay, so in this case, previously we sent the message that nothing but we send with the file actually comes to this folder. The same file would be sent to what ActiveMQ. That was the previous example. In this example, we are going to send the object direct start. So we are going to send the object via the producer template to this endpoint. As soon as this endpoint get the object, it will transfer the same object to what the ActiveMQ. So producer template equal to context dot producer template. Producer template dot sent body. So the second method, which takes endpoint and then object as a parameter. I'm going to say the same endpoint is direct dot start. What is the object that I'm going to pass? You can pass your custom object, or else you can pass any object you want. Okay, so as of now, I'm actually passing what date object, which is inbuilt. When we import this data object, I'm going to use the date one which from Java tutorial package. Okay, of course we have to start the camel context. Context dot start. Okay. Now we have a producer template. The producer template will send this date to this endpoint. As soon as this endpoint receives any object, the same object will be sent to the ActiveMQ. So let's run this example. We'll see what's going to happen. So before that, you can see we have the ActiveMQ. So as of now, that has only one message which we sent previously. That is nothing but a file. You can go and check it here. We have only file, right? So I'm going to run this example. So this example actually going to send the data object to this endpoint. Let me run this. Now our context is started, and then probably it would have sent the object to this endpoint. So that would have sent to what the ActiveMQ. So just go to the ActiveMQ server, just refresh this. You can see what this is increased as 2. Just click to your end, click to the queue. So here, if you go and look inside, you can see whatever data object we sent, the same actually received in the ActiveMQ. So that's how we can send any object from a camel to you can send to ActiveMQ. We have seen how to send a file, an object to the ActiveMQ server. So, but in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to receive any message from ActiveMQ to our Camel endpoint. Let's see how to do that. So in the same package, I'm going to create one more class called ActiveMQ consumer. So now let me have a main method in it. So I would like to copy a few lines of code from the previous example to save over time. Copy up to this, and it's the same. Let me do the exception. So here, so now in this case, we're going to receive the message from ActiveMQ, right? So that's going to be from endpoint. So what is our true endpoint? So the true endpoint, we're going to use the CEDA component to receive it. Okay. So we have a Camel context, we have a connection factory for ActiveMQ. So we have routes defined, so there's nothing but from is going to be ActiveMQ to is going to be our CEDA endpoint. So to consume it using consumer template. Consumer template equal to context dot create consumer template. Consumer template dot, there is a method called receive body. What is the endpoint? CEDA dot. So it's going to be, so this is the endpoint. So that means whenever ActiveMQ receive any message to its queue, so our Camel endpoint, it's going to consume that. So whatever this endpoint is going to receive, we're going to get it via the consumer template that you're creating. Okay. So since I'm going to send the string message, so that's what I'm specifying the string type here. So based on the object that you send, you can specify the same. Okay. So since it's a string, so I'm going to capture to the string variable message. Then you simply print this message. Okay. Now let's run what's going to happen. Run this example. So you can see that now Camel context is up and running. So go to the ActiveMQ. So I want to minimize this. So now go to the queue. In the queue, you can see there is no message as of now, right? So now in the ActiveMQ itself, you can find the option called send. That means you can send the message in the ActiveMQ to using to any queue by using the send to option. So just click on it. So this is the queue I would like to send the message. Okay, what type of message I want to send? The message is string. I'm simply going to send this is Dinesh. Let me send this. So as soon as I send, you can see the message is what this Dinesh Krishnan. Then this message actually consumed by what one consumer. This consumer is nothing but our Camel endpoint. I'm going to show you how to call a method using class as well as the bean component in Camel. So to do that, first we have to create a class. I'm going to create a class called myService. So inside the myService, I'm going to have a method public void do something. Right? So that's a method. So now I want to call this method using what? Camel class as well as what bean component. So to do that, let me create a new class. I'm going to create a class called call method using class component. Let me have a main method in it. So now, in order to call this method, yes, of course, I have to create a Camel context for the first of all. So I have to do that. Camel context equal to new default Camel context. So as and when every import is done, so we created the Camel context. Now let's add routes to the Camel context. So context dot add routes. Here I have to pass a route builder. So new route builder. So now it's want me to handle exception. So I'm going to throw the exception as of now. So here you can provide your implementation. So now we added the context, we added the routes to the context. Now we have to say the endpoints. So to do that, from endpoint as well as I have a to endpoint. So now I want to trigger this from endpoint using the producer template. So before that, I'm going to start camel context. So once that is done, let me create a producer template equal to context dot create producer template. Using the producer template, I'm going to send body, I'm going to send to direct start hello. So what I'm trying to mean here, I'm going to send hello message to this endpoint. So where this endpoint is available, okay, let's create this endpoint. So direct style, right, direct colon start. So we sending the message, that's nothing but a hello message to this endpoint. So as and when this endpoint receives the message, it has to send the message to this particular method. So to do that, I'm going to use the what, the class component. So using class. So and then you have to provide a fully qualified name of the class. So right click, then copy the fully qualified name. Then what exactly the method that you want to trigger. So method equal to, what is the method name? Do something. Right click, copy it and paste it here. That means inside this class, I want to call this method. So now let me save this. So the thing is, we are passing this message, but how to receive the message in this method. So to do that, let's introduce the new variable. I'm going to say the message, then system.out.println. I'm going to print the message that I received. Right? Let me simply run this program. We'll see what is going to happen. Here we go. If you see this, I have a producer template. The producer template trying to send this message to this endpoint. As and when this endpoint receives the message, we want to send that message to what, the appropriate method by using what? Class component. We just had an example how to call a method using class component. Now let's do it with the bean component. How to do that? So to do that, first we have to create a bean instance, the class instance for a class. So I created the instance. Now we have to add this instance to the registry. So to do the registry, we have a simple registry in the camel. So registry equal to new simple registry. So in the simple registry, I'm going to say registry dot put. I'm going to name the services my service. You can name whatever you want. So then the value is the bean object, right? So now I have to add this registry to the default context. So what is the first step? Create an instance for your class, then add that instance to the registry, then add a registry to the context. So now what I have to do, I have this in bean. So instead of class, I'm going to say it's going to be the bean component. And then instead of the class name, I'm going to say the bean instance name. Let me save this and run this program. Here we go. We got the same output. So now we triggered the method using the class as well as what bean component. I'm going to show you how to perform a SQL operation using Camel framework. So in order to do that, obviously we need what the database first of all, since we're going to perform the SQL operation. As part of this tutorial, I'm going to use MySQL as a database. You can see the MySQL terminal is open. I'm going to create the database. So to do that, create database. The database name is camel_tutorial. So the database is created. I'm going to add a table into the database. So I have to do that, use camel. So I'm going to create the table. create table customer ID integer, then name varchar 40. The simple understanding is we have a database. Inside the database, we have one table. The table is customer, which has what, 2 column ID and the name. The table is successfully created, right? So I'm gonna add few rows to the table. So I have to do that. Insert into customer, right? So I'm gonna add 101. So then the customer name is Dinesh. Right? So now let me add one more row. So I'm gonna say let me come in the transaction. So now let me do the select rows from the customer table. So we have 2 rows available in this table. So now let's do the same query in the Camel. Have to do that, right? So in order to do that, of course, we have to add few Camel dependency to do that. So go to the POM XML. So we have to actually add few dependencies. So just go to your Maven repository. In the Maven repository, you can find Camel JDBC. Just give an enter. You can find the artifact. Just add this artifact as part of your project. So the latest version is 2.22.1. So you can actually take it, copy the dependency, just add it into the project. Right? It's added. So now you can see that it's going to pull up the dependency and it's going to add it to our Maven project. So we can see that is actually added. Camel JDBC is added. So likewise, we need to add the JDBC connector for MySQL database. So to get it, go to the same Maven. You can find MySQL connector, right? So you'll get a MySQL connector. So my database actually it's a 5.5. So I'm gonna get the similar version. So I'm gonna get the 5 distribution. So to maintain the compatible. So my database is 5.5. So I'm just downloading the nearest version. Okay, so add them into what? Your POM XML. Right, so now we can see that both the dependencies added in our project. Just go to the package. Now, so for what we did, we just created the database, we created the table. Now we added few dependency for the Camel project. So in order to do the interaction between what? Database and then Camel application. So far we just created the database and we just added all the necessary dependency to our Camel application. Okay, now let's write a code to make a communication between the Camel application and database. So how to do that? So go to the package, create a new class. I'm going to name this class as SQL operation. Let me add a main method in it. So now, as we all know, the first step, we have to create a context, then we have to add a routes to the context. So let me simply do that. Camel context equal to new default Camel context. Here what I'm going to do, I'm going to add routes to the context. So add routes, new route builder. So it's one way to handle the exception. I'm going to throw it as of now. So far we did the typical step that we used to do for all our Camel application, right? So we just added the context. We just added routes to the context. Now let me make a communication between Camel application to our MySQL database. So how to do that? You can do it by creating the data source.
So to create the data source, you can find there is a data source called, since we are dealing with the MySQL, the data source name is data source MySQL data source. Just click this. You can create the instance for your data source equal to new MySQL data source. I'm going to add the few information about the database. So data source dot first the set URL, right? So what is the URL? What is the connection URL for this data source? So JDBC colon MySQL colon / localhost 330306, that is the default port number for MySQL database / the database name. So if you remember, we created the database called camel_tutorial. Please mention the same, camel_tutorial. Now we just added our URL. Now data source dot set user. So what is the database user? So my username for the database, it's root, and then we have to add a password. Data source dot set password. So my database password is root again. So now we captured few information as part, it's about the database, the URL and username and then password. So now we have to add this data source to my registry. So how to do that? Simple registry equal to new simple registry dot put, I'm going to call this as what? My data source. So what is the data source that we have? Data source, right? So now I'm going to pass this registry to our Camel context. Now if you look at it, we created what in a data source for our database, then we added the data source to what? Simple registry. We added the registry to what? The context. Now we're good to go. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create two different endpoints. First endpoint is from, leave it empty as of now, then to endpoint. The to endpoint, it's a bean. So now here, I'm going to trigger this endpoint direct start using the producer template, because somebody has to trigger the camel routes, right? I'm going to trigger it by using the producer template. So producer template equal to context dot create producer template, right? Before that, let me start the context. I started the context. I created the producer template. Inside the producer template, I'm just simply going to send body. I'm going to say what I'm going to do, direct dot start. So I'm not going to send any message to this particular endpoint. I just want to trigger this endpoint when my camel application is started. That's what I'm using, this producer template. So far so good, right? What we're going to do now, we have to trigger the SQL. So SQL query to this database, and then we have to fetch this information and populate in the camel application, right? So to do that, what I'm going to do exactly, just go to the to endpoint, simply add JDBC colon the data source name that we have. Here, if you look at it, we have two endpoints. One is a from endpoint, another one is a to endpoint. But the from endpoint, so it's actually triggered by the producer template. The to endpoint, it's going to talk to what the database. But what exactly the query that we want to trigger to the database? So that can be done with the help of the producer template. So here I'm going to add one more argument. That's going to be the query actual. I want to be injected customer. So the prerequisite template want to send this query to this endpoint. This endpoint will receive that message. So this endpoint will pass that message. When I say message, will pass that query to this database, right? So now we got the query. Now we are injected the query to this database. We perform that injection. Now we need to get a result, right? How to do that? To do that, I'm going to create the separate class. So that can be achieved with the help of the other method called bean. Here I'm going to pass two arguments. One is the bean name, another one is what? The method that has to be triggered. So what is a bean? Since we don't have a bean, let me create the new class. So I'm going to create the new class called result handler. Result handler. Right? The result handler is going to have the method public void print result, right? So when I hit this query, I'm going to get what? The list of customer information, right? So here you can mention the list, right? So just simply loop it. So this list is actually from java.util package. So loop them. So I'm going to say list dot size, then simply system.println this out. I'm going to say list dot get of I, right? Right. So our result handler class is created. Now I have to create instance for this result handler in the bean method. So new result handler. So what is the method I want to trigger? You can pass it with the double quotes. I want to call this method print result. Call this method, right? So now let me simply run this class. We'll see what is going to happen. Here we go. We have two rows available in the database, in the table. So one is the Dinesh, another one is Krishna. We received exactly those two information as part of our example. So this is how you can actually pass any SQL query, via the camel, and then you can get the result. So thanks for watching.